So I'm cheating a little bit here because I'm now no longer in North Korea, I'm back in China, but all the footage is from North Korea. I'm sure you can understand why I didn't record these videos while I was there. But anyway, this video is going to be about Juche, and before anybody says, oh, this is Western propaganda or anything like that, this is mainly from books I bought in North Korea, like Kim Il-sung on the Juche idea and the Korean people's struggle for its application. So I'm going to try and present what they say Juche is about, but it's quite confusing because there doesn't seem to be any real, nothing seems concrete about the Juche ideas. So first of all, is it communist? Well, Kim Il-sung calls himself a Marxist-Leninist quite a lot, and he says that Marxism-Leninism is truth, and he defines socialism as the complete abolition of national inequality and class exploitation, and requires an all-round development of the economy, science and technology. Kim Il-sung said that after the revolution they had a choice between capitalism and socialism, but he said capitalism was exploitative, so they chose the road of socialism. But he said it couldn't be implemented straight away, and he in fact said after the revolution he encouraged small and medium entrepreneurs to develop the economy because, in his own words, they had a backwards economy. But he says Marxism-Leninism is not a dogma, it's a creative theory. And he said a lot, that he didn't want to implement what the Soviet Union or China did within North Korea, and they should build their own form of socialism. But he was also very bitter about the idea of, back in the 20s, Korean communists being kicked out of Comintern. He said that it's wrong that a communist group can only be considered communist if it follows an orthodox line. So, what is Juche? And I'm reading quotes here. This is what he says. Establishing Juche means that the people approach the revolution and construction in their country as masters. Once people are armed with the Juche idea, they will recognize that nothing is beyond their capability. So this is quite different to the sort of materialistic view that a lot of communists have. This is very man-centered in a way, and he agrees. He said Juche is a man-centered philosophy, treats every man as the master of everything and the master of all decisions. He said the Juche idea is embodied first of all in the lines of political independence, economic self-sufficiency and national self-defense. He says the Juche requires 3 revolutions to be carried out: ideological, technical and cultural, and in his words, the essence of Juche is independence and creativity. One thing that's very important to the Juche idea is a sense of nationalism, and he hated the idea of flunkeyism, the idea of being subservient to other nations. He said South Korea was wrong for following that line, and he said that every communist should oppose big power chauvinism. And for instance, he said, intensified education in the Juche idea is essential to enhance people's independence and rid them of any disposition to worship big and advanced countries. So one thing he disagreed with and spoke a lot about is his disagreement with foreign things being in Korea. For instance, he visited an army resting home and saw a picture of the Siberian landscape and said Korean people like Korean landscapes. He disagreed with pictures, like there was a diagram of the Soviet 5-year plan in a public hall, but this should be the Korean 7-year plan or 3-year plan, I think it was at the time. Other things like schools shouldn't have portraits of foreigners, they should be Koreans, and people shouldn't wear foreign dress when Korean dress is so elegant, on women especially. Oh yeah, and another one, he said that some early revolutionaries used foreign words like proletariat or ideology, but he said that this would eradicate the Korean language, and he was very nationalistic. He said that the Koreans were a sagacious people with a long history and diligent and all this stuff. So you can see here that this goes very much against old communist ideas of internationalism and solidarity. And unlike other communist nations who try to help communists around the world, he says we are not engaged in any other country's revolution but solely in the Korean Revolution, and we do not intend to encroach upon the interests of other nations. But you can see that he sees that communists should at least be internationalists, so he does say there can be no internationalism without independence, and says that patriotism and internationalism are linked somehow. Anyway, onto the economy, and he was focused on the economy developing in a way unique to Korea. For instance, he said that other nations, when they tried to develop their agriculture, developed mechanization first, but he focused on irrigation, and he says that the Chonagrassi method, i.e. just collective farms, was the best way for Koreans to produce more because it roused the masses. But at the heart of the economy was self-sufficiency. But he realised that there was problems in trying to develop the country through self-sufficiency. He said that those problems producing resin and ferromanganese and synthetic fibres within Korea. And despite his grandiose statements, he said that Korea should aim to get at least 70% of its raw materials from Korea. The rest had to be imported. So even he appreciated the fact a lot had to be imported. Plus, he also says, needless to say, we fully recognise the importance of foreign support and encouragement and consider foreign aid necessary. Plus, as opposed to what he said in earlier years, he would later say things like, if we boast that our own things are the best and do not learn from others, we will not develop. And this is clear, and he also carried on, this is opposed to what he said when he said that Koreans should only have Korean stuff. He said that importing pianos is okay to develop musical ability, but he tried to balance this out by saying we should not play Western music. So early on he said it should only be Korean, but later on he said that it's okay to import foreign technologies and stuff like that. So there's a lot of the Juche idea that just changes depending on who he's speaking to or the climate at the time. For instance, he said that reunification should be a peaceful process, and he said the best way to do it was to promote democratic rights and freedom in South Korea through political groups working within South Korea. But he said shortly after the Korean War, if they had 5 to 10 years of peace with the Soviet Union and China's help, they could defeat the US, and of course they promoted building the military up a great deal. So he was both peaceful and warlike and allowed foreign technology, but also said foreign technology should not be in the country. So it changed quite a bit. And when I say it changes quite a bit, I think it's because it's not a hardcore belief, it's just more whatever the leader says becomes the new Juche idea. And one example of this is in recent years, any reference to communism and socialism have been removed from the constitution, and in the 60s, after the Sino-Soviet split, I believe, they wrote the 10 principles for the establishment of a monolithic ideological system. And a couple of these are, we must make absolute the authority of the great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung, and another one is, we must adhere strictly to the principle of the unconditional obedience in carrying out the great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung's instructions. So it's not really a set of beliefs, it's just whatever the leader says becomes the new Juche idea. Another example of this is recently, after the famine, black or informal markets have developed within North Korea. So this is private enterprise in a country that used to believe everything should be nationalized. However, this is still the Juche idea, somehow. And finally, education. Now, the idea of education is very important in the Juche society. He said that their 1.2 million strong army of intellectuals will allow them to do anything they want to. But the reason ideology is so important within the school system is, in his words, if a man is ideologically backwards and morally degenerate despite his excellent health, he can only be regarded as utterly useless and mentally disabled in our society. And if they hate work and do not serve the state and society, their knowledge and skills will be of no use, however excellent they may be. So from what I can tell, and I've read speeches from like the 40s up until the 80s, there doesn't seem to be anything concrete within the Juche idea. I mean, Kim says that it's focused on creativity, independence, and a man-centered philosophy, but that's pretty vague and meaningless. Otherwise, it just seems to be whatever the leader says becomes Juche idea.